Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Wednesday, December 1st. This is Africa 54. Dutch health officials have revealed that the COVID-19 Omicron variant was detected in the Netherlands before 2 flights arrived from South Africa last week carrying the virus. At least 14 people on flights from Johannesburg and Cape Town arrived at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport on November 26 carrying the new variant, according to the National Institute for Public Health, RIVM. But RIVM virologist Chantal Rusken said that it had also been detected in 2 test samples taken on November 19th and November 23rd, and that only one of the individuals had visited Southern Africa. In the Netherlands, tougher COVID-19 measures went into effect on Sunday, and on Tuesday, the country registered a record weekly number of new infections. Nigeria has detected its first case of the Omicron coronavirus variant in a sample it collected in October, weeks before South Africa alerted the world about the variant last week, according to the country's National Public Health Institute. It is the first West African country that has recorded the Omicron variant. This adds to a list of nearly 20 countries where the variant has been recorded. Meanwhile, the director of South Africa's Communicable Disease Institute said on Tuesday the Omicron variant could be the next most transmissible after the highly contagious Delta variant. Chinese President Xi Jinping has pledged a further 1 billion COVID-19 vaccines to help Africa achieve the goal of getting 60% of the continent's population vaccinated. Matthew Larotonda has more.
China has promised a further 1 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses to the African continent amid intensifying concerns over the spread of the Omicron variant. Speaking via video link at the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation on Monday, President Xi Jinping said 600 million shots would be donations, the remaining 400 coming from other means, such as joint production between Chinese companies and relevant African countries.
In order to achieve the goal of getting 60% of the African population vaccinated against COVID by 2022, I announced that once again China will send 1 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines to African nations. 600 million of which will be granted as aid.
China has already provided nearly 200 million vaccines to the continent, where vaccination rates have lagged behind wealthier parts of the world. Xi also said China would build 10 health projects in Africa and send 1,500 health experts. Chinese companies will be encouraged to spend no less than $10 billion in the continent over the next 3 years.
China will never forget its deep friendship with the African nations and will continue to uphold the principles of truth, the correct view of justice, and to work with African friends, allowing China and African countries to build a good spirit of cooperation from generation to generation and to develop together.
The announcement comes amid criticism of China's infrastructure for commodities deals that some say saddle countries with unsustainable debt. Last week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, without naming China, criticized international infrastructure deals that are, quote, opaque and coercive, and said Washington would be pursuing cleaner deals.
That was Matthew Larotonda of Reuters reporting. On December 1st, many mark World AIDS Day to show support for those living with HIV, to commemorate those who have died from an AIDS-related illness. Treatments have come a long way for those infected with HIV, but a cure remains elusive. VOA's Laura Bowman has our story.
Globally, around 38 million people are living with HIV. Since the virus was identified in 1984, more than 36 million people have died of HIV or AIDS-related illnesses. Each year on December 1st, World AIDS Day, many reflect on the fight against one of history's most destructive pandemics.
The state of affairs globally is very much a situation of the haves and the have-nots. For those people who live in places where treatment is not free, or in situations where the treatments are still very old, treatments with lots of side effects, people don't do so well. And without treatment, HIV remains a disease that people die of.
Experts say that effective treatment prevents HIV-infected people from transmitting the virus. They also say that worldwide, more than 50% of those living with HIV are women, and that 1.3 million women with HIV will become pregnant. Effective treatment can prevent transmission of the virus to the unborn child. Britain's Dr. Orkin led a global effort to develop the first long-acting HIV treatment. She says that treatments such as injectables taken once every 2 months are available.
But where I live, it could amount to 6 treatment days a year for someone with HIV. And that's very different from having to take treatment 365 days a year. So it's a real breakthrough.
U.S. researchers are chasing a cure by studying HIV patients whose immune systems fight HIV without medication.
Some people are able to keep HIV in check with their own immune systems, and that really set us off in the direction of trying to understand how that was possible.
Laureen Willenberg is one such patient. She was diagnosed as HIV positive in 1992, but has never been symptomatic.
29 and a half years, I have never needed to take HIV medications. I'm humbled. I'm grateful.
Dr. Walker and his colleagues at the Reagan Institute do think it will be possible to one day cure those infected with HIV.
Our goal is to train their immune system to develop this kind of super function that we see in some rare individuals to actually be able to ideally cure them of their HIV infection, or at the very least, be able to keep the virus so under control that it can't cause any disease in the person and that it can't be transmitted to somebody else.
But World AIDS Day reminds us that HIV hasn't gone away. With funding and attention now focused on the COVID-19 pandemic, testing for HIV is down and trials have been disrupted. Developments that are worrying HIV specialists and those with the disease. Laurel Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
In search of a better life, many migrants cross from Africa to Europe through what has been dubbed the deadliest border in the world, the Mediterranean Sea. But despite the risks, the International Organization for Migration says the number of people crossing has doubled in the first half of this year to an estimated 77,000. Rudy Elmendorp reports from on board the Ocean Viking, a rescue vessel in the Mediterranean Sea.
One small step for a migrant, but a giant leap to a better life, at great risk in the Mediterranean Sea. Crossing from a boat adrift at night into a European rescue ship, dispatched by SOS Méditerranée. For this, the migrants put their lives at stake, and their condition at sea can be devastating, says this rescuer, who identified himself only as Tanguy.
We had operation with people suffering from bullet wounds. Sometimes you have some people who already died in the target because of suffocation, because of whatever. So it's like it's very different all the time.
Requiring green light to disembark 19 mail.
On board the Ocean Viking, the ship chartered by the group SOS Méditerranée, survivors receive clothes and a place to sleep. Like 40-year-old curtain maker Salim from Syria, who fled his country to keep his son out of the army.
I come to here with my father from Syria because I should go to the war after 18 years. So I am come with my father to the Libya and from Libya to the Italy and the sea.
Father and son and the other more than 300 rescued migrants passed their time during the rescue mission, while enduring encounters with the Libyan Coast Guard that is known for pushing migrants back to Libya.
I think that they are coming and trying to intimidate us to stop heading towards their waters, which we would still in any case never go inside Libyans' water.
The International Organization for Migration attributes the rise of the number of new arrivals to a deteriorating human rights situation in Libya. The migrants from across Africa seek safety in Europe, like 32-year-old Annabelle Phillips.
Security of life that I could not have in Nigeria.
For your child?
Sorry?
And for your child?
And for my child, because in Nigeria there's nothing like security, no security in Nigeria.
The Ocean Viking operates in a zone the size of Denmark, making the chances of spotting a migrant ship minimal. Critics argue that rescue operations invite migrants to take deadly risks.
We can see that clearly during COVID times as well. Last April, for instance, in April 2020, when the pandemic outbreak actually paralyzed the world, people kept fleeing, but we just heard more reports of shipwrecks.
When they have picked up enough survivors, the waiting starts for Italy to assign a port of disembarkation. Evacuating a critically ill person to the port at Lampedusa, after 4 days the moment arrives.
Yes, we are going to Italy!
And with the assignment of a port of safety comes an end to a journey that for some survivors took years. And the next step now is to see whether they have COVID-19 or not. And then they will be transferred to land, to centers where they will be determined whether they can be asylum seekers or not. Permission for the rest of the migrants to disembark comes at Augusta in Sicily. And by stepping on land, another journey starts. Being granted asylum can take years, and the unlucky ones may be sent back or disappear in Italy's tough informal economy. Ruud Elmendorf for VOA News, Augusta, Italy.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a Nigerian tech company offers STEM programs for people with disabilities. We'll be right back.
For the next Straight Talk Africa, we'll look at the future of finding work in Africa. With a generation of young Africans more educated and more unemployed than ever before, what and where are the jobs of the future? Also, higher education with a higher purpose. We'll take you inside a one-of-a-kind African university that says it's cultivating future African leaders who will transform the continent. Join me, Heidi Adams, on the next Straight Talk Africa.
Welcome back to Africa 54. It's bird migration season in the skies over Israel, one of the world's busiest migration routes connecting Europe, Asia, and Africa. Each autumn, about 500 million birds fly over Israel from the north in order to spend the winter months in Africa. The migration poses challenges to the Israeli Air Force, which trains in the same narrow corridor as the migrating birds. Linda Gradstein and Ricky Rosen report from the Hula Lake in Israel's Galilee.
Hundreds of migrating birds fly past the full moon rising over the Hula Lake in the Galilee region of Israel. They will rest on the lake for the night before continuing their journey from Europe to the warmer climate of Africa.
Israel is like a funnel that funnels all this migration from Eastern Europe and Western Asia all the way to Africa. And we see here some 500 million birds every migration season.
The migration timing and routes are being affected by climate change, an issue that scientists say must be addressed for the survival of these birds.
They are the clock of Mother Earth. They know exactly when they should come. And what we see in the recent decades is that this clock of Mother Nature starts a little bit, to fall apart. Because of changes, because of climate change, because of other things, because we don't keep this route of good habitats, of good fueling stations for these birds.
Besides climate change, Israel must deal with the challenge of migrating birds sharing a narrow airspace with the very active Israeli Air Force. Devastating collisions between birds and fighter jets led ornithologist Yossi Leshem to conduct studies together with the Air Force to find solutions to the problem.
Before we started our joint study, the Israeli Air Force lost 11 aircraft, combat aircraft, with collision with birds, totally crashed. 3 pilots were killed. We succeeded to reduce the collision with birds by 76%.
Leshem flew with the birds in motorized gliders in order to provide the Israeli Air Force with exact maps of their migration patterns. These maps were used to coordinate training flight schedules and routes to avoid collisions. Leshem and the Air Force have continued to monitor the birds with radar stations, drones, GPS tracking devices attached to the flocks, and even volunteer spotters situated around Israel during migration season. And for a few months each season, Israelis have a chance to see the amazing spectacle of hundreds of millions of birds in the skies. Linda Gradstein for VOA News at the Hula Lake in northern Israel.
December 3rd is the annual observance of the International Day of Disabled Persons, proclaimed in 1992 by UN General Assembly in Nigeria. An initiative for national growth, Africa is leveraging technology to offer career training and advocating for policies that impact people with disabilities. For more insight, Africa 54's technology correspondent Paul Ndiho via Skype spoke to Rachel Inegbedion, founder Initiative for National Growth Africa in Lagos, Nigeria.
Rachel Inegbedion, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you so much.
You run an incredible program where you're trying to empower people with disabilities by giving them tech skills, robotic skills, basically trying to give them another lease on life. Speak to me about that.
Our innovation is just simply about preferring adaptive learning opportunities through leadership and technology projects for persons with disability. It cuts across disabilities such as Down syndrome, autism spectrum disorder, visual impairment, and cerebral palsy. We try to engage so that they can have the best in terms of learning experience and then transit into jobs. So in collaboration with several developmental organizations in Nigeria and even outside Nigeria, we combine technology and special needs education in order to provide these learners with disability with the opportunity to enhance their communication skills while learning about robotics, physics, drones piloting, even electricity. And after which these young adults with Down syndrome, autism, and visual impairment are able to learn how to integrate into internships. Essentially, our impact is just helping to promote social and economic inclusion, for persons who have been historically marginalized, especially people with disabilities.
What made you look for this particular niche where you're trying to provide a service to a community that is quote unquote either culturally marginalized or people who are left out of the society? How did you think about coming up with a program that empowers them.
Close to 6 years ago, I visited a home for persons with disability, some part of my community in Lagos. And when I go there, usually there's this model that when you go to that place, you're expected to be able to sing. Like the children there, you have children with autism, Down syndrome, visual impairment, just all in that place. So on that fateful day, there was a 24-year-old girl with cerebral palsy that did not have a wheelchair. She was just on the floor, but she had a very beautiful voice, and that really struck me. And she sang beyond the limit. And in my presence, I saw a caregiver take out her slipper and struck the girl on her head and say, "You shut up, you're singing, it's okay, don't sing anymore." I mean, for me, it was really very derogatory. It was dehumane. And for me, I felt I needed to do something about it. I was really triggered. And then I told the lady that I was going to take this off. And I went to the management and I said, "Hey, madam, this is what I saw." And the lady was so, you know how people try to cover up. I said, "Hey, she's just trying to discipline." I said, "That's not discipline." So we changed that status quo. And even that girl now I'm talking about, she is now a sign language interpreter.
Bless your heart. Bless your heart.
Exactly. We ensure that from then to now, we're able to provide her with the right skills that will build her to become a better person in the society, and then she can be able to earn for herself.
Well, let me take this opportunity to thank you and your team for doing that courageous work. It takes a bit of courage to be able to do something extraordinary like that. Have the conditions changed at that institution?
Yes, it has changed, because we constantly try our best to engage with the caregivers to retrain them on the newest models of how they can relate with children and young adults with disability.
You talked about some of the programs that you are giving these people. Are they using them to find jobs? Are they using them to uplift themselves out of that environment that they are in?
Most of our programs are hinged, like I mentioned, they're hinged on STEM and robotics, like educational technology, whereby it is designed to support, assist, and augment their leadership skills so that they can actually access jobs. So we do things like robot-assisted instruction, such as circuit robots, drones, piloting. We help learners with disability to improve their interpersonal skills, because we understand that these are vital components of the STEM and robotics capacity building sections with young adults with Down syndrome, autism, visual impairment. It just helps them to quickly learn life skills, and they apply them to natural and organic situations around them, and even people who are non-disabled.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That was Africa 54's tech correspondent Paul Ndiho speaking to Rachel Inebedion, who joined us from Lagos, Nigeria. To make Black history more accessible, an Oakland, California man designed his own augmented reality app. Matt Debo has the story.
This mural honors two leaders of the Black Panther Party, the revolutionary group founded here in Oakland, California over a half-century ago.
That's pretty cool.
The painting by Timothy B. makes a strong statement, but point a smartphone at the wall and it literally speaks.
The only next thing to do is get organized, get organized.
Damian McDuffie brought the mural to life using AR, augmented reality technology.
What I've built is Black Terminus AR. It's an augmented reality platform for Black art and the Black Cultural Archive.
McDuffie is a writer and historian who says he wants to make history more accessible. He used downtime during the pandemic to teach himself AR and create a free app for others to use.
The camera is using computer vision. They see a target, and then I and my tech tells the target what to do. So when you see this image, play this video.
McDuffie has activated sites important to Black Panther history around Oakland. And that's just the beginning. He is helping others launch their own AR projects, like this one, with students in Tanzania. His website has tools that make it possible for anyone to make their own AR artwork, he says.
My dream is to have these, archival photos of people in different neighborhoods, like all over. You might be able to open up a photo of your grandparent and kind of showcase what they were doing.
The power is with the people.
Matt Dibble for VOA News, Oakland, California.
One advocacy group in Johannesburg is calling for better support to help South Africa's little people live independently. Linda Giftash has this report.
Downtown Ouagadougou, early Saturday. Police fired tear gas into crowds of protesters calling for the resignation of Burkina Faso's President Roch Kabore.
So as you can see behind me, the military police have just started firing tear gas into the crowd. There were around 400 to 500 people here before. The crowd is now starting to disperse, but there's an eerie silence that's fallen over the scenes here.
Journalists were hit with tear gas too, even after identifying themselves as press. One local radio journalist was injured after being hit in the face with a tear gas canister. In recent days, protests have spread across several cities in Burkina Faso. Demonstrators angry at what they say is the government's inability to counter terrorism after an Al-Qaeda-linked terror group attacked a military outpost in the north of the country, killing at least 50 military police. One protest leader told reporters,
"We want the departure of Roch by noon. We want the resignation of Roch, his government, and the NPP regime."
By early Saturday, the police had blocked entrances to the square where protesters were due to meet. Some protesters began shouting at military police. Others approached them with their hands up to show their support for the security forces. Not all demonstrators were peaceful, however. Some attacked a pickup truck carrying members of a local militia known as the Kogluiego. Others set fire to tyres and threw rocks at security forces, as well as journalists. Mamam Flora Pascalina is a Burkinabe blogger and activist who goes by the nickname Flo Flo. She says she supports the FDS, the Burkinabe security forces, and therefore Saturday's protests against the government.
My heart aches for my people who are dying before my eyes, and I can't stand it. I've thrown myself into this, and I fight night and day for the Burkinabe people, for the FDS.
Protests against French military intervention in Burkina Faso have also taken place in the last 10 days. Demonstrators blocked a French convoy travelling through the country, claiming the soldiers were aiding terrorists. Many Burkinabes, including Flo Flo, believe in conspiracy theories like this, spread over social media. Starting Saturday, November 20th, the government shut down mobile internet for 8 days, in part to stop the spread of misinformation, but also to suppress protests. The government came under pressure from lawmakers about its handling of security and the internet.
Our apologies, that was Henry Wilkins reporting from Burkina Faso on the security situation there. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website.